Now we're gonna move right into the elbow whip master move concept, and we're going to basically imitate that general motion that we just went through with this high throwing action from a couple feet behind the baseline. And we're just going to do some shadow swings, but we're going to do it in a different way than you've been feeling it. So the problem with recreational players is that they focus too much on their hands and the grip and the racket head and not enough on the body. And so the way to overcome an arm-driven swing, leveraging, pushing the swing, is a pulling action. As I said in my very first lesson, based upon other great instructors, not great instructors, but good instructors, they say that all good ball strikers are pullers and all poor ball strikers are pushers. So we want to be pullers in our swing, not pushers. So how did we start the swing even? Is we can lever the racket back like this, hand split, and we're levering with our elbow and our hand back to this position. We don't want that. We want a gentle pulling motion, and we want that motion to be led by our elbow, just as when we were doing the wax on, wax off. This was a motion basically led by the elbow, even if you didn't realize it. So we're basically just going to be pulling the racket back on the handle, pulling and making it this kind of circle. And we're gonna circle back and finally end up in this slotted position where the racket is facing to the side back fence and our elbow and hand are coiled back. Our forearm is open to the sky like this, I'm showing you. And we're going to pull back into that position, and then into the forward swing, we're gonna pull with our elbow leading. So to do that, we need to side bend our body a little bit so there's space here for this to go around with my elbow. We'll leave the racket behind us, and we're gonna throw the racket out on edge. So pulling motion to the back, pulling motion, racket lagging through. So we're on to the next progression of complexity in this deliberate practice system. And so I want to talk just a little bit more about this take back and in the forward swing and about what our shoulder is doing. So the shoulder basically has two motions that are going on that are important. One is an external rotation of the shoulder joint. As I take it back here, you can see that my shoulder is externally rotating outward away from my body, and even all the way back in the slot, my shoulder joint is rotated this way. That's external rotation. Internal rotation is just the opposite. So my shoulder is rotating internally, sort of around and towards me and forward into the swing. So we go from external rotation to internal rotation, external rotation to internal rotation. So that's just a baseline for you. So now in this next phase of practice, we're going to give a little bit more attention to this external internal rotation. So we're going to be taking it back, and let's just choose one of the big three. Let's just choose Federer for now. So he raises up the racket here in his takeaway initial, and he's in shoulders in mild external rotation. He's not doing anything very aggressive. So he's taking it back, and then he lets it sort of drop to the side, but then also in back of him. Again, most players simply drop the racket too much to the side, and they need to get it deeper behind them so they have a range of motion back here. So all this is taking place, external rotation, Federer, drop back into the slot, external rotation, and then the drive forward. First part of it is very mild, we'll talk about it in detail, but then as we get to the turn of the swing, I want to define this term for you. So this is the first phase, we're coming out of the slot, but as we shoulder turns towards the opponent and past the opponent, this is sort of the turn of the stroke, and this is where we get all the speed in the stroke. So as we move out of the slot into the turn, that's when we are going to have a strong, aggressive internal rotation of the shoulder in this throwing action. I want you to have a bigger motion, but then as you take it down from the top, I want you to sink and pivot as you go into the swing. Side bending, giving yourself room for this to go through. And we're going to try to make this action as fluid as possible, gathering energy into the ground and then pushing out of the ground and into it. So what should we be doing in our first movement out of the slotted position? We should be doing 2 or 3 different things. So the momentum of our rotation is taking the racket sort of out here to the right initially, and that's fine. That's what we should be doing. But furthermore, we want to both move this into the swing circle at the beginning, and we're going to do 2 different things. We're going to rotate or supinate our forearm back this way. So just to clarify, there's 2 things with rotation of the forearm. There's pronation, where my thumb is carrying over the racket like this and closing the racket face. And there's supination, where my forearm is rolling back like you see here and the racket is laying back. So as we come out of the slot, our natural tendency, if we're untutored, is to want to start pronating too soon. That's going to give us the over-the-top flaw that I've been talking about with Coco Gauff, and it's detrimental at a high level, it's detrimental at a low level. I've been talking about it for more than a month here about Coco, and last week at the French Open she lost to the #1 player Iga Swiatek 6-2, 6-4, and she made 39 unforced errors in those 2 short sets, and most of those were topspin forehand errors, and almost all of them had this contributing flaw that I've been talking about, this over-the-top aggressive move from the slot, internally rotating the shoulder too aggressively too soon, pronating aggressively too soon, leading to all these mistimed hits, as well as flattening out the swing stroke. So as you supinate, as I've been telling you, the racket lays back and down from the hand. You can see that it extends down. So I started here, but then as I supinate and lay the racket back, now the racket head is several inches below my hand. And so as I turn into the swing, this is going to be the basis for the vertical rise through contact. If we are pronating too quickly, this is going to be the opposite. It's going to bring the racket up and flatten the swing path, and we're going to tend to have an outside-in swing path instead of a inside-out swing. To provide further validation to my description of the master move and elbow whip, I wanted you to watch this slow motion video of 4 Djokovic forehands that I filmed. And these 4 forehands come from one rally. You will see a variety of forehands, some defensive and some attacking. And you will see this first move out of the slot and the master move a little bit differently in each stroke. But all of the Djokovic forehands have this key movement. After the Djokovic forehands, I'll put a clip of 5 Federer forehands I filmed in one rally shot. And again, you will see a variety of defensive and attacking forehands, but all of the forehands will have this master move and elbow whip. The third movement, of course, that we always have to be concerned with is how are we pulling or pushing this racket. So again, coming out of the slot, we don't want to lose the concept of pulling, and we pull with the inside of our elbow, not pushing around, but pulling. So we're doing these three things. We're pulling with our elbow, we're supinating our forearm, and we're letting our arm elbow extend down so the racket is now well below our hand as we move around the swing circle. So all of these three things then set up the elbow whip, or the whip in my kinetic chain model. So we're keeping all the coil and energy stored in our shoulder complex, in our arm, our hand, and our wrist. Hopefully we have a semi-Western grip by now in our fingers here. And so as we body pivots first, not hitting arm pulls back, the back here, helping us rotate. This is going to be released. This energy is released. It's not actually, you know, swung so much as we got all this coiled energy like a rubber band, and then it whips around as our arms extend up and through the shot in throwing the racket head out on edge. Now, who has this type of swing? Well, I'll give you some links in the bottom of notes section, where you can look at the two top players in the world on the men's side now, Jannik Sinner and Carlos Alcaraz. Both have this whip forehand release. Both at the beginning of the stroke, you'll see it in the slow motion video that I'll reference. They have a supinating forearm and a laying back of the racket. There's no early pronation. Carlos, you can see this great loopy shot. He's rolling back like this. Sinner is the classic example of the whip forehand, where his elbow is tucked close to his rotating side, and he can just fire this. He's probably the cleanest hitter on the tour right now on the men's side. On the women's side, for a long time now, and it looks like it's going to continue, the top player is Iga Swiatek of Poland. And I'll provide a link there where you can see her slow motion video from the target line that you're seeing now. And you'll see this extreme windshield wiper action, this elbow whip. I would say that it's, you know, maybe not as body oriented as the men, that she really is depending on more of a whipping arm action, but nevertheless, it's a great shot. It's the most dominant shot in women's tennis. And it's dominant for a reason, just as Sinner and Alcaraz's forehand are dominant for a reason. It's exactly this elbow whip release powered by the body.